Germany. Can't reach the bar.
Who's hosting?
I guess I am.
Yeah, I think Madra did it last time. We got to get Bill healthy. This has been going on too long.
Well,
we can't run the show without Bill.
Between the breakdowns, being sick, and having kids, and the whole real life thing, yeah. It's been difficult for me.
Yeah, well, we can forgive Eric because he's real sick. Yeah.
He's like proper sick.
Anytime you're taking someone else's antibodies into your body for temporary because your body will fight them off eventually, but it's the only way you stay alive, that's sick.
Okay, looks like we're live now. And we should be recording.
Yeah, and Craig says he's recording. Well, I've got Audacity ready whenever, just as a backup. But that's just my backup. If you all sound crappy, you'll sound crappy, but
I'm okay with this. I don't want anything else running on my computer that could potentially slow it down and cause a problem.
Joe, have you picked out which topics you want to talk?
No.
Because me and Moss have.
And I guess whatever's
well,
left
then
is mine.
whatever's left is Joe's. That's easy.
Whatever is unpicked, I guess, is mine. All right. Did we want to 3, 2, 1 silence?
Yeah, we want to do that, especially since I'm here. On Audacity.
I mean, I was just going to let Craig do it. I wasn't going to.
You can let Craig do it, but mine was the one that's been messing up.
Yeah, sure. No, I was just checking, that's all.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, silence. A zeros. 3, 2, 1, 0.
0.
Close enough for government work. I'm ready. You're ready. We're ready. Take it away, Joe.
You ready, puppy? Ready?
Yes, I am, Joe.
Next, you're going to have me convinced that I'm hallucinating, and then that's the end of the show.
No, when you're hallucinating, you just drop out and I take over.
Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 460. This is episode 460.5. Recorded on Sunday, April 27th, 2025. Having trouble staying awake again? I'm Joe.
Working hard, I'm Moss.
Sightseeing, I'm Majid.
Bill and Eric called in sick today, so let's go. First up in the news, Ubuntu 25.04 released, Ardour advances, Commodore OS 3.0 released, and OpenMandriva brings us 2 new releases. In security and privacy, U.S. warns of new Zambian cybersecurity law, and hackers can now imitate official Google Mail. And in our wanderings, I get recontained, Moss waits, and Majid goes to Cambridge. In our innards section, we are having an open discussion. In Bodhi Corner, we discuss the magic of modules. And finally, the feedback and a couple of suggestions. Please remember, if you want to follow along with our discussion, the full show notes for this episode are linked in the show's description at mintcast.org/shownotes. And now, the news. Majid?
So Ubuntu 25.04 release now available for download. And so this particular article comes from OMG Ubuntu, but it's all over the internets. So pull out the party poppers and unpack the cake today. It's Ubuntu release day. It was actually the 17th of April, which was the release day, the day before Good Friday. So Ubuntu 25.04 Plucky Puffin is now available to download. It's the latest short-term release, which will be receiving ongoing support for 9 months. That'll be till January 2026, which isn't long, obviously, but we've got 25.10 in October, and 26.04 will be the next LTS this time next year. So, over the past 6 months, Ubuntu engineers, developers, community contributors have baked in plenty of improvements into this release. Now, every Ubuntu install starts with, installing it. And so there's been improvements here to Ubuntu's installer, which can now replace an existing Ubuntu install, partition disks with other OSs more effectively, and better handles dual boots if Windows BitLocker is enabled. So in the past, you would have to specifically disable BitLocker and unencrypt, and then could you install Ubuntu as a dual boot. It gets a big UX uplift courtesy of GNOME 48, which brings, amongst other things, HDR support, well-being controls, and group notifications. From a foundational perspective, Ubuntu 25.04 runs the latest Linux 6.14 release and Mesa 25 drivers, along with in-distro access to newer drivers for those that need them, and brings full support for the new Intel Arc Xe iGPUs and Battle Image discrete GPUs. So looking at the highlights at a glance, as we said, it's, Linux 6.14, the improvements to the OS installer, GNOME 48, as we mentioned. There's a slight visual refresh. There's some resized icons. The contrast has been enhanced. There's new wallpapers as we get every time. There's a new document viewer app using Papers from GNOME, which replaces Events. BeaconDB geolocation, powering the night, light, and time zone features. Mentioned about the new graphics drivers and the NVIDIA Dynamic Boost support. There's also a unified ARM64 ISO, which works with Snapdragon X Elite laptops. I'm going to get to that. JPEG XL support is also supported out of the box. There are reams of smaller buffs and bug fixes, package tooling updates, etc., to make sure that this release runs well for most people. The most impactful changes are best felt: speed, fluidity, performance, and the only way to sample these is to go get the ISO and boot it up and try it out. You can download the ISO from the official release server. The desktop ISO is about 6 gig. So just be aware you need to have a reasonably sized USB. I mean, nowadays, everybody's got like a USB stick of like at least 32 or 64 gig. But yeah, just in case. System requirements are a 2 gigahertz dual core processor or better, 4 gig of RAM, 25 gigs of hard drive space. You can also download the ISO for ARM64 devices. Now, the hardware support is limited, but apparently the newer Snapdragon X Elite laptops are now supported. Or you can get the official WSL image for Windows on ARM. You just go to the Ubuntu CD image server instead. There's also an official pre-installed image for Raspberry Pi devices, as well as a pre-installed 2504 server image for compatible RISC-V SBCs, tablets, and laptops. So I have now got Ubuntu 2504 on both my AMD x86 laptop, and I finally managed to get it onto my Snapdragon X Elite laptop, which is a Lenovo Yoga 7X. Gotta remember the name. I'll talk more about it in the Wanderings. What I would say is I think it's true what Joey says here about that it's the changes are best felt. It surprised me how smooth and nice it felt. Now, I remember Leo on OTC last week kind of looked at me weird, as he often does, and says, why are you surprised that a company that's been building Linux distros for over 20 years has a good release? And I'm like, that's not what I meant. What I meant to say was that considering that this is, a short-term release update, it's only going to be supported for 9 months. And, there is a discussion you can have in your head. If you've got an LTS, why would you bother? If you're on 24.10, okay, fair enough. But otherwise, why? but just from a usability perspective, it does feel fast, it feels fluid, it feels crisp. Do you know what I mean? Almost, and I did an in-place upgrade, so it's not as if I'm doing a nuke and pave and I can put it on that. Say it's about that. So I think that it is true of what's been said. As I said about the ARM64 bit, I'll talk about it in the Wanderings. Cool, Joe. I think you're next. Unless anybody else has got anything to say on Ubuntu 25.04.
Nope. Okay. Ardor, the free and open DAW, is better than ever, and Ardor 9 is coming from CDM Link. Ardor, the criminally underrated free and open source DAW for Mac, Windows, and Linux, has been a little quiet lately. Over the weekend, we learned what's coming in Ardor 9.0 9+, and why the devs have been busy. Not sure where to start? Check out how-to videos including voice-activated recording. Ardor serves a key role in the music software landscape, even if it's not a household name. The free codebase and community support give the DAW a direction that proprietary software can't always take. Over the years, it's also been a source of significant innovations, and while it's great that proprietary software like Bitwig Studio can run on Linux, those free operating systems do need a fully free Libre DAW choice too. Not least
Can
because...
we put this out there, Joe? Digital audio workstation. That's what a DAW is.
Okay. Not least because they can be built with the distro. None of that should dissuade you from running on macOS or Windows either. A subscription of as little as $1 a month gets you access to pre-built software and supports development. Ardor technology is also the basis of the excellent Harrison Mixbus and Live Tracks, in an unsung use case of open source technology that's essential to many studios and live sound applications. That means what the community builds here has additional upstream professional uses, with all the additional functionality, gloss, and support Harrison provides. Ardor creator Paul Davis gave us some hints about what's in progress in Ardor 9. It's exciting and maybe another reason to cough up a few dollars to support development, at least as well as toying around with the software. These all come with a disclaimer that they may not make that 9.0 release, but it's nice to see that the 9+ cycle in general has in store. Multi-touch GUI, Linux Windows level support for multi-touch interactions, that's exciting for supporting multiple machines. UI layout reorganization. No image of this yet, but expect some visual rearrangement of the UI. That's the Ardor 8 image picture. Well, okay, that's not picture. Yeah. Piano roll editors of MIDI regions. You're not limited to the timeline for this anymore. Essential to any of us working more with MIDI, there's both a pop-up and a window. MIDI audio cue editing. This is what you think of as clips in Ableton Live, Bitwig Studio, and most recently Apple Logic Pro. And each will now have its own page for editing. Region FX, this is very cool and not something I can think of working quite like this elsewhere. Apply effects by region, offline, not only to the whole track, etc. Spectral Analyzer, improved macOS GUI draws, and various fixes. See the full description in the link in the show notes. Now, if you've missed what's been coming in Ardor 8 builds, there's been some terrific stuff with fixes through February 2nd's Ardor 8.11. The big addition has been cues, think clips, follow actions, and the like, which, while they're familiar from other DAWs, take on some unique function and utility in the Ardor context. Some other highlights as far as functionality. Track dragging, MIDI scene markers, parallel disk I/O, and storage improvements, plugin improvements, broad hardware support, note splitting, no strobe options, which removes barriers to anyone sensitive to blinking lights. Ardor is sometimes way behind other DAWs, although other DAWs are sometimes way behind other DAWs. Okay, did I read that right? Ardor is sometimes
way other behind... DAWs are sometimes way behind other DAWs, but Ardor is sometimes way behind other DAWs. Yeah.
Okay, but It's also often far ahead. Its rate of development follows Paul and those contributors and what the community is focused on, which is important in itself. And it has rich Lua scripting, extensive localization in multiple languages. The list goes on. I think because of that update cadence, I often miss stuff, but I'll try to stay on top of Ardor 9. And that's the guy that wrote it, not me.
I might have a look at this. I have no idea. I'm barely able to manage Audacity, but
Right?
Yeah. So that was the question I was going to have. Who would benefit from something like this as opposed to some of the other solutions that we know? Is it people who are like professional creatives, music makers? Is that really who is going to gain from this?
As a musician, there are a lot of things I could do with Audacity if I could figure out how. Whereas some of these other workstations that you can multi-track much more easily. With Audacity, you pretty much have to do different recordings and then throw the tracks together. Whereas in other DAWs, you can just do the multiple track recording at the same time. I don't know. I got to stay up on this. Audacity is simple. It may not look simple to someone just using it for the first time, but compared to the other digital audio workstations, it is sheer simplicity.
Yeah. Well, Audacity is one of those things that can be used simply, but it can also have the complex stuff added in and used. At least that's what it seems like to me.
Well, when you're doing multi-track recording, I still haven't been able to figure out how to do that right.
I'm just amazed. I take this as a win for open source.
Oh, sure.
And a free open source digital audio workstation, loads of collaboration, musicians, programmers, professional recording engineers, that, is toe to toe with some of the best proprietary solutions. I mean, I think it's a real win for open source that it even exists, really.
You're right. Right now, I think DaVinci is the cream of the crop for Linux.
Yeah.
But Ardor has been trying to make all the strides they can to keep up. This is exciting to me. I'm going to have to check it out.
Ooh. All right, so I've got the next one.
And it's your favorite.
Yes, Commodore OS Vision 3.0 released. So, Commodore OS Vision is a 64-bit Linux distribution which maintains a retro C64 Commodore 64 style and ships with many games pre-installed. The latest release, version 3, includes over 200 games. Commodore OS Vision 3 is the largest games-oriented Linux distribution ever produced, featuring 200 plus free Linux-compatible games with an assortment of classic Commodore games and demos that will undoubtedly scratch your nostalgia itch, it says. So it has its own BASIC. BASIC V1 is a modern BASIC implementation featuring 3D graphics, built-in sprites, built-in time maps, 2D, 3D physics, user types. Future development will be geared towards compiling software for the original C64 and Amiga hardware, with Commodore emulation all set up, a plenitude of pixel-based graphics editors, including C64 sprite and charset editors, as well as Amiga MOD and C64 SID trackers. So why not build your dream retro game on Commodore OS? Is what they say. Additional information can be found at the links in the show notes. So, the reason I wanted to talk about this is that this is my first ever distro. So, this is this version 3, is the first release they've had since 2013, when Vision 2 had been released, and the reason I say it's my first ever distro is because I heard I came across, I don't know how I came across it, but I was a huge Amiga nerd when I was in my teenage years, and so the idea of having a operating system that looked a bit like the Amiga or looked a bit like the Commodore C64, I just loved it. I remember downloading it, and the fact that I could burn it to a DVD. It was about 4 gig or something, roughly. It just completely blew my mind. It didn't work very well, and it was at that point I went, I wonder what this is actually based on, and then found out it was based on this thing called Linux. And then I was like, I wonder what happens with Linux then. I wonder if that's that Ubuntu thing that an old friend had told me about some years ago. And then my second ever distro was Ubuntu 11.10. And there starteth the story. Anyway, Anyway,
well, you won't be able to fit this one on your DVD. It's 35 gigabytes.
Yes, exactly. I was going to mention that. So I thought, having seen it, I've got to download it and try it out. 35 gig ISO, right? And then
over 200 games.
Yes,
exactly. which is true. But remember that those games were like, they were in the kilobytes.
It specifically says that only about, because it says it has 300 games. But it says 200 of them are Linux games and 100 of them are Commodore games.
Okay, fine. Then that makes a bit more sense. Okay, fine. But the other thing is I'm just wondering about the legalities of all that. Do you know what I mean?
Jack Tramiel is dead and buried. We'll never hear from him again.
I'm pretty sure not the copyright's gone on those.
Well, you'd be surprised, isn't it?
Amiga OS is still under copyright, but
it is.
I do not know how much of Amiga OS is included in this. There is a German company that still owns the software.
Yeah, they still own the software, and you still get these PowerPC boards, and you can, if you really go digging into the Amiga kind of fan base, you'll find that they recommend you getting an old PowerPC MacBook and being able to put an ISO onto that and stuff like that.
PowerPC is a better platform for this, since it's basically it grew out of the Motorola 68,000 chip series.
So anyway, that's the reason I wanted to kind of talk about it, because completely ironically, it is my first ever distro, and it started all of this. So it's their fault. It's their fault I'm on mintCast and you're having to listen to me.
Well,
anyway,
now it's my turn for my first ever distro. Open Mandriva LX 6.0 Rock, the spring release. The independent community-controlled distribution Open Mandriva LX 6.0 fixed point release, as opposed to the rolling release branch, is out right now. Main features: KDE Plasma 6 desktop by default, X11 and Wayland are available. Community spins featuring latest desktop environments: LXQT 2.2.0, GNOME 48.1, XFCE, and Cosmic 1.0 Alpha. This also features the first official stable release of the Open Mandriva Server Edition. More on this near the end of the article. If you run OML X 6.0 inside VirtualBox, we strongly recommend using the X11 version, since there are some known problems with Wayland on VirtualBox emulated GPU. VirtualBox users may need to set VM SVGA controller to boot successfully. It works fine on most hardware and in QEMU with KVM. The OM Welcome Startup and Configuration tool, specifically designed for Open Mandriva KDE Plasma desktop environment, receives some more improvements. Software upgraded to the most recent version as default in the ISO install media or available in repositories such as desktop environments, Plasma Desktop 6.3.4 and 5.27.12, KDE applications 25.04.0 and 23.08.5, KDE Framework 6.13.0 and 5.116, Qt 6.9.0 and 5.15.15. The kernel 6.14.2 and 6.15.0 RC2 built with CLang. LibreOffice Suite 25.2.3 with Qt6 and Plasma 6 integration. Chromium Browser 135.0.7049.84 patched with Google Spyware disabled and JPEG XL support re-enabled. Firefox 137.0.2 patched with spyware disabled, Falcon 25.04.0, GIMP 3.0.2, VirtualBox 7.1.8. Development tools: LLVM/Clang 19.1.17, GCC 14.2.1, glibc 2.41, Systemd 257.5, Mesa 25.0.4, and Java 24. Available in the Open Mandriva repository, Proton and Proton Experimental, which make Proton available outside of Steam without the need to reinstall any non-free code. Security and privacy promptly addressed all the recently security vulnerabilities. Users of OMLX 5.0 are strongly advised to opt for a fresh installation of ROC 6.0 to enjoy the new Plasma 6
French
desktop.
install? Did you say a French install?
Sorry. A French install, absolutely.
So
the English install will be out later. We're just joking, people. The first official release of the server edition. Servers and desktops are different in many ways, more than most general-purpose Linux distributions would make you believe. In Open Mandriva, we have opted to make those different use cases possible by building radically different versions. While the desktop editions are meant to be so easy to use and learn that a first-time Linux user can instantly get things done, the server edition assumes users know what they're doing. Most notably, it does not have a graphical interface, which would just waste space and get in the way in a typical headless server. Also, server images are released as a disk image instead of the ISO image format for desktops. That way they can be deployed in virtualization solutions like QEMU, OpenStack, various cloud providers, etc. without an installation process. Just load the image into the VM and start using it. Of course, it is also possible to install Open Mandriva server on hardware. Simply DD the disk image to a USB storage device, boot from it, and use the install Open Mandriva script in the OMV's home directory to install it to the destination disk. This is a different installer from the GUI installer present in the desktop versions. It is a shell script that experienced admins can easily adapt to any custom needs. The server images come with a minimal set of packages preloaded. The idea is to install just what is needed for the user's specific needs, be it Nginx or Apache, PowerDNS or Bind, PostgreSQL or MariaDB. Packages of most relevant server software are available for easy installation with DNF install. The Open Mandriva server images come with a pre-configured user OMV with password OMV. They also support cloud-init to allow customizations in cloud providers. Server images are available for generic x86-64, AART64, ARM64 with UEFI support, tested in VMs and on Ampere eMag and Ultra servers, and AMD Zen, EPYC, Threadripper, Ryzen. The generic x86-64 version works for those processors as well, but the special version is more optimized. Please read the release notes and errata at Open Mandriva Wiki official documentation, and we have links for those in the show notes. Mandrake was my first distro, so this means something to me. And in fact, with 3.1.3, I believe it was, and later with 4.0, it became a really solid distro. I think it's head and shoulders above any of the other Mandrake derivatives. The Russians can have their Rosa all they like, and Rosa was the base that they used for Mandrake 3, Open Mandriva 3. But things have grown from there, and I don't think people who tried Mandrake in the old days have really given Open Mandriva a fair shake. And it's a great distro, and Fabrice Ballard does a great job of keeping everyone in line and making them happy. And even when he can't answer my questions, he doesn't put me off. So I really, really, really endorse this distro, even though I'm not currently using it.
So my only experiences with these would be Magia back in the day and Rosa, like you mentioned. I've not used any of these recently.
Well, Magia is still out, but I think you'll find that Open Mandriva has a lot more depth to it than the Magia does. In fact, it has the same opening music, except there are a few more notes on the Open Mandriva version.
Okay, so if you were to give me an elevator pitch for this distro in 2 lines, what would it be?
Open source, Plasma is the best. It was the original distro to use Plasma. If you like Plasma, it'll be great for you. If you don't like Plasma, well, have fun with some other distros, you know. They still use basically Red Hat for the package manager. They have they've got derivatives of it. What is it?
Yum.
No, they don't use Yum now. They moved to. My brain is not working here. They did mention it here. They had moved on to blah, blah, blah. Yes, indeed, they sure did. Well, I'm not going to be any good here, so.
Okay.
I just blew all those people that were all ready to go jump onto Open Mandriva.
I might still go on it. It's been a while since I've hopped onto that particular distro train.
Where the heck is it here? It was DNF is what they're using now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on then?
Yep.
Security.
All right. Moving on to security and privacy. U.S. issues warning over Zambian cybersecurity law. This is from the BBC. The U.S. Embassy in Zambia has warned its citizens to be wary of a new intrusive cybersecurity law introduced in the southern African country. The embassy issued an alert telling Americans in or planning to visit Zambia of a new law that requires the interception and surveillance of all electronic communication in the country. This includes calls, emails, text, and stream content in country to assess if they include any transmission of critical information, a term the law defines so broadly that it could apply to almost any activity. Zambia's government said the law was needed to tackle online fraud and child pornography, as well as the spread of disinformation. Following the alert from the U.S. Embassy, Zambia's foreign ministry released a statement saying the Cybersecurity Act is not intended to invade any person's privacy, whether Zambians or foreigners. The law does not authorize mass or random surveillance. A exception or data request requires a court-issued warrant, it said. The statement added that the classification of critical information referred to national security, and any assessments or actions taken are carried out by authorized institutions in line with due process. There are fears that the law could be used against anyone who criticizes the government, especially with elections this year. Some Zambians have expressed concern that a new cybersecurity unit is being set up in the president's office. Joan Shirwa, founder of the Free Press Initiative Zambia Campaign Group, told the BBC it was a sad day for Zambia. She said the law wouldn't just affect journalists or civil society organizations, it will affect everyone in Zambia. The new measure empowers a law enforcement officer with a warrant to enter any premises to search and seize a computer or computer system containing material that is either evidence necessary to prove an offense or acquired by a person as a result of an offense. It also allows the government to extradite Zambians deemed to have committed any offense under the law with a range of jail terms prescribed. Offenders may be fined or jailed for between 5 and 15 years, depending on the crime they have committed. Among other provisions, the legislation requires information and communication technology companies to proactively intercept all electronic communication. It was signed into law by President Hakainde Hichilema on 8 April with very little publicity, and the first many Zambians knew about it was when the U.S. Embassy posted its alert on Facebook. As this new law introduces an intrusive surveillance ecosystem significantly different from privacy protection provisions that prevail in many countries, the Embassy of the United States encourages Americans living in Zambia or considering visiting the country to carefully assess the implications of this law and adjust accordingly. The alert came as a surprise to many, as the U.S. has widely been seen to enjoy a warm relationship with the Hichilema-led administration, although the ambassador has recently been critical of alleged government. Zambia had enjoyed a frosty relationship with the U.S. after the former government expelled its pro-gay rights ambassador, Daniel Foot, in 2019, but relations had improved since Hichilema was elected in 2021. Social commentator and civil rights activist Laura Mitty accused the U.S. Embassy of hypocrisy while also labeling the new law tyrannical. Until Edward Snowden revealed the matter, the U.S. secretly surveilled its citizens for years. He remains in exile and one of the most wanted people by citizens for years. He remains in exile and one of the most wanted people by American law enforcement, wrote on Facebook. That raises an eyebrow about this from the American embassy. Hypocritical, really. However, she also condemned the new law. This is a very tyrannical law which the government only needs because it feels secure. In 2021, while still in opposition, Kekelema opposed a similar law when the former government wanted to pass it, writing, "The Cybersecurity and Crime Bill is not about preventing cyberbullying. It is about clamping down on freedom of expression and spying on citizens." Opposition lawmaker Miles Sampa has accused Kekelema of performing a U-turn now that he is president. My question is, when did you change this stance to now sign a law that almost 100% prohibits U.S. citizens from expressing ourselves on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, etc., without being jailed for 25 years or life imprisonment, he wrote on Facebook. In the current state of the cyber laws that you have assented to, Mr. President, you may as well also sign a martial law, state of emergency, to discard democracy so we all stop talking and leave it to your good self to express alone. Wow.
I mean, come on,
article.
glass houses, come on.
Yeah, I was going to go there. Yeah, it kind of seems like that's a little bit happening in America now. Even judges are being arrested when their opinion doesn't match the rest of government's.
I mean, it's just,
well, we're still fighting, and nobody has been given a 5 to 15 year sentence yet. But
I mean, the point is true that this doesn't seem like the best law for privacy and security issues, right? That is true. But who's saying it really destroys it?
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. No, and it's just, and what made me laugh was, I don't know how what was the name of the woman who
well, the U.S. has always. The U.S. has always been good at pontificating rules that they don't themselves follow. So,
well, yes, I mean that's a very good summation, Moss. That's a very good summation. It's interesting actually because obviously last week we talked about last episode our innards was about going abroad and keeping your data and privacy and security and all that sort of stuff. It's not just us, it seems, that came up with that bright idea. The Vergecast, which is the Verge's podcast, actually had a long 1.5 hour podcast on things you should do and things like that, because of going abroad and different political this, that, and the other. So obviously this is something that we're all needing to be a lot more on board with, because it's not just, yes, I mean, somebody could turn around and say, oh, Zambia, who the F goes to Zambia? Yeah, but this exact same stuff's happening in America. It's happened in certain ways in the UK some time ago. Things have got a bit better, but
it's kind of a cascade effect. It starts happening.
Well, yeah, exactly. Place. Yeah, I mean, India. I mean, yes. I mean, I always get worried whenever I go to India. And
Modi is the same type of autocrat.
Exactly. He is exactly the same type of autocrat. So this is my point. So yeah, I mean, it's stuff that we need to be aware about.
We don't talk politics here, people. We just hate politics.
We end up talking politics.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and we're all a bunch of crazy liberals, so if you don't like it, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I call myself a centrist.
You would probably
call centrist for Europe is far left for America.
You would probably call us centrists too. But here in America, we are far leftist.
Yeah, I mean, just shameless self-promotion here. Myself and Joe and his, good missus talked about this on my last podcast. Yeah. Just a bit of shameless self-promotion.
Oh, that's okay. I hear Scotland is opening up their visa program, so two Americans that have skills.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's loads of us that.
The only rats Scotland who can leave the ship are the ones that can afford to.
So, if I'm in Scotland, you going to come visit me?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I have no money.
I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to Majid.
Oh, well, I didn't know that, did I?
Well, I'll come visit. I'll come back and visit you on occasion. How's that sound?
You might get arrested. Okay, let's get back to Linux, shall we?
But yeah, apparently this is a Linux podcast, apparently. And so on
Crazy.
more really, cheery and lovely news. Go on, Moss.
Oh yeah, lovely, cheery. Beware. Hackers can apparently now send phishing emails from noreply@google.com. From Tech Radar, researchers have discovered a clever and elaborate phishing scheme that abused Google's services to trick people into giving away their credentials for the platform. Lead developer of the Ethereum name service, Nick Johnson, recently received an email that seemed to have come from no-reply@google.com. The email said that law enforcement subpoenaed Google for content found in his Google account. He said that the email looked legitimate and it was very difficult to spot that it's actually fake. He believes less technical users might very easily fall for the trick. Mind you, this guy is technical as all get out. Would I fall for it? Maybe. Would you fall for it? Probably. Let's see. Apparently, the crooks would first create a Google account for me at domain. Then they would create a Google OAuth app and put the entire phishing message about the fake subpoena in the name field. Then they would grant themselves access to the email address in Google Workspace. Google would then send a notification email to the me at domain account, but since the phishing message was in the name field, it would cover the entire screen. Scrolling to the bottom of the email message would show clear signs that something was amiss, since at the bottom one could read about getting access to the me at domain email address. The final step is to forward the email to the victim. Quote, since Google generated the email, it's signed with a valid DKIM key and passes all checks, end quote. Johnson explained how the emails landed in people's inbox and not in spam. The attack is called a DKIM replay phishing attack, since it leans on the fact that in Google systems, DKIM checks only the message in the headers, not the envelope. Since the crooks first registered the me at domain address, Google will show it as if it was delivered to their email address. To hide their intentions even further, the crooks use sites.google.com to create the credential harvesting landing page. This is Google's free web building platform and should always raise red flags when spotted.
So, the only thing that surprised me about this was that I thought this is being done already. I thought this hack had happened some time ago, or this way, because I've had loads of stuff from no reply at Google, which looked legit, and thankfully, because of the fact that I never got stung by it. So I mean, maybe I don't know, maybe it was something else that I was actually getting, but be very careful with phishing. It's interesting. Yesterday, I was speaking to a friend of mine who works in IT, who works in he works for a company. I can't remember the name now. Anyway, and he got stung, and he's like, Mr. Uber careful, and VPNs and this and that and the other. So
anybody can get caught sooner or later.
But, exactly.
Here's an easy way to look at this. If you're logged into your Google account and checking your email, and then you click on a link inside a Google email from Google, and it asks you for your credentials, it's fake.
Yeah.
Because you're already logged in.
Yeah.
Second, I don't click links in emails.
Yeah, I mean, but it still shocks me how many people still do. I mean, okay, normies, techies, the illiterate, if you want to put it that way. Yeah. But the thing that I find interesting about my friend, as I said, my friend works in IT. He's been doing this kind of stuff. He knows phishing scams, this, that, and even he got sucked in once. So
as good as anybody is, I mean, there's always more people out there coming up with new ideas all the time. You can't assume that you're immune just because you think you know everything. So
yeah, no, 100%, that's true. It was I think it was a salutary lesson for him. I think the other thing that was interesting, at least when I was discussing with him, is how the nature of this kind of attack has changed. The analogy is kind of, when I were a lad, people who nicked cars nicked cars so they could go joyriding in them and then, mess around, this, that, and the other, and then dump it burnt out somewhere at the end of the, whatever. Nowadays,
they didn't bring it back?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Nowadays, people steal cars to order. And by the time it's even got, the owner has realized it's probably in pieces on a ship to Africa or China or whatever. I mean, for example, in our city now, you cannot get car insurance on Range Rovers because they're so easy to steal and they get stolen to order. It's just ridiculous. And I think that's kind of the thing that we need
Canada
to think
has
about.
A problem with Hyundais the same way.
I mean, I think that's kind of the way to kind of think about it when it comes to these kinds of attacks. In the early days, people were trying to get your credentials so they could then, get on and use your credit card and, rack up loads of debt and whatever. But actually now what people are doing is they're getting the details and then selling them on. And there are websites out there with people's Netflix passwords and people's PayPal accounts and all this kind of stuff. It's phishing to order, as it were, in that same kind of way of stealing cars to order. It's not the thing in itself. It's a whole industry now.
Proton Guard keeps
digital
sending
crime.
Proton Guard keeps sending me emails that some of my data has showed up from some website, and I never heard of the website, so there's no way I can go change my account on it because I don't know what the account is on it. I would not go to that site, so I don't know what to do about those. I just say, oh well, they've been managed. I don't have an account there. Fortunately, so far,
I think the nature of the beast has changed. As I said, I think the nature of the beast has changed, and we all need to be vigilant.
Now, no more Nigerian princes.
Man, do you reckon that there is a Nigerian prince out there going, I've been trying to get rid of all of this money, and this money is still here. I have been trying to give it to Joe, and I'm trying to give it to Moss, and somehow I'm sounding Italian, not Nigerian. I'm going to stop with the bad accent. But
that's all right. Bill does his bad accents. I can do mine.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought Bill needed to be here in some way, shape, or form.
You should meet my sister. She would like that very much.
Okay.
Moving
all right,
on.
Let's move on.
Moving very, very swiftly on.
The bi-weekly wanderings. Okay, first up, me. Not much getting done by me over the last couple of weeks. I keep needing to get out to the shipping place to send Moss some stuff, but it still hasn't happened yet. I did get OpenWRT with OpenVPN working on the server rack. I had to wipe out the previous build I tried and start over from scratch and follow the walkthrough that I found step by step. Actually follow the instructions and things work. It does remind me of the setup that I used to have with Docker doing something similar, but with much better control, and I hope I won't have to rebuild it every couple of months the way I had to do the Docker one. So now I can pass the internet from any container, LXC or VM, and the container will have the IP provided by the VPN, which is nice because like PIA only allows you like 5 logins max before they cut you off. But at the same time, with the way that it is set up, each container still has access to the local IPs. This means that things like barrier and SMB shares still work with no issues and no lag, while the external IP is the location of the VPN. I still need a way to access the VPN/container with a singular browser window that isn't logged into anything else. So that way I have a browser that's completely isolated that goes through the VPN. I'm thinking that I might use a VM of like Chrome OS Flex and see how that works. But I'm not quite sure how I want to do that. I also started building an R stack based on that, thinking that I may be able to decommission my VM that I use for automation, trying to offload more of the work from my PC to my mini rack. I also finally got back to setting up Jellyfin, because with Plex, they are now limiting who can stream and who can't stream. I want something a little bit more open. I reset up the mappings so that all of my library was available to the Docker image. I may switch to a bare bones install, but I want to give this a chance. I do have a couple of accounts set up on it, including one for Moss, if he ever wants to test out using the Jellyfin instead of the Plex.
If I can ever figure out how to be attached to 2 different Jellyfin servers.
Right. My only issue with it is the item matching. Well, that and the folder setup that does not automatically put multiple seasons together, it calls them different iterations of the same show if they're not in that same folder. So, and it definitely doesn't do well with guessing which show is what. Moving on, I also had some 3D printing fun again, mostly printer issues. Tried multiple times on one print over several days. Nearly every time I had a problem with bed adhesion on one location on the bed, even after flipping and then replacing the magnetic build plates, still in that very same spot. Then when I finally did get it to print, it got about halfway through the print and the Y belt snapped. Thankfully, I had a replacement from the set that I had purchased when the X belt snapped. Not as difficult as I thought it would be, and I had the printer up and running again in no time. Then that same spot in the bed had issues again, and I noticed that there were several portions of the bed that seemed either higher or lower. It could be a couple of different things, but I chose to go with option A since I had a replacement magnetic sheet lying around, and I replaced it. The old one I stuck to the side of my metal filing cabinet and will use that to hold spare build plates. The other option is to check that the X-arm is still tight and the hot end has not worked itself loose again. If none of these options work, I will probably try out a BL Touch to account for the wavy bed. It's either that or replace the whole heated bed, which is still an option. Speaking of which, I had the thing apart to replace the belt. I also upgraded the springs and replaced the adjustment wheels with larger ones, since I had all of those sitting around anyway. I'm also going to replace the extruder gear and recalibrate again, since I am noticing wall separation again, and it's usually a sign of under extrusion, and after I recalibrated last time, it should not be an issue. Which I did. I did that. I replaced the gears on that extruder. And I was getting some odd numbers while calibrating the extrusion, almost random how much was actually extruded independent of the extrusion multiplier. Granted, it would be the same once the multiplier was set. So it would eject the same amount, pull back the same amount. Then I would change the multiplier and it should go up, but it doesn't. I don't know why it was just randomly picking how much it would print and then sticking with that number. That's after replacing and tightening the gears. Maybe it needs a new motor. I mean, they're only like $12, so I might give that a try. However, the bed, after I replace the stick-on magnetic sheet, is still very not level. High spots and low spots all over the place. Might try to add a BL Touch, but my birthday is a few months away, and I already know that my daughters are getting together to get me an Elegoo Centauri Carbon. But since I will probably give the Ender 3 V2 to my son. Although the Ender 3 V2 is starting to feel very much like Theseus's ship. I did go back afterwards and tighten up the arm just to make sure that it's not an issue with the arm. I did verify that the hot end is not loose. It is sitting in the correct position and it is not wiggling back and forth, which could affect the height. So I haven't tested again after I adjusted that arm, but with the extrusion motor being all over the place, I guess it also could be a power supply issue which is causing this. So we shall keep testing and see. Also want to say a special thank you to Ada for the Ko-fi donation and the kind words. Enjoying the podcasts and your inputs very much. Thank you for all you're doing. I wish you all the best. And now that the first coffees have arrived, many more to come. Thank you. I really do appreciate this. I love the fact that people like what I'm doing enough to give me a couple of dollars here. Just absolutely incredible. These donations are greatly appreciated, and like I said, I will be putting them towards future projects that I will be talking about on. And yeah, that's all I've been up to. So unless you guys got anything to say, it's over to Moss.
Oh, I did actually have something to say. How are you finding Jellyfin compared to, because I know you've got a Plex server and you've used Plex for many years. How are you finding it in functionality and stuff?
Like, neither of them are perfect when it comes to identifying, television shows or movies. But it seems like Plex is that little bit better at it. Plus, Plex has the live TV built in, and this, that, and the other. Overall, experience-wise, I'm probably going to have to hand it to Plex. But I do have a lifetime Plex pass too, so that might make all the difference. But
yeah, Plex is trying to find ways to make more money. Is what's going on here.
Exactly. And as they get more closed, I might slide more and more towards Jellyfin and put in the extra work to get the matching correct and all that. So streaming, I would say Jellyfin does make it easy, and I have yet to come up against anything that it can't stream. And I haven't gotten too far into the settings on that, on how it would work with various styles of hardware acceleration. But I do know that I have had some pretty major issues with Plex streaming, but I have used it more to actually hit those.
So do you stream to like smart TVs and stuff like this as well?
Not with Jellyfin yet, but with Plex I do.
That's what I was going to ask, yes, because I know Plex will often have an app for a lot of the smart TVs or Chromecasts and stuff like that. I wasn't sure what Jellyfin's situation was with that.
My understanding is that Jellyfin also has apps out there now. Like a year or two ago, they really didn't, but now they do on most of your major platforms. Moss might be better to ask that one. Are there television apps for Jellyfin?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just using it in the browser.
All right, Moss. What have you been up to?
Well, I guess I can't. I actually have that on box that Bill sent me, and it does work, and it does have a Jellyfin app in it, but I have not yet been able to figure out how to attach to Bill's server for that. Whereas the Plex, it went right in. I can use it there. Anyhow, well, for me, I shipped both my PineTab 2 and my Chroma Harp to new homes. I have wiped my Kindle Oasis, but have not yet posted it to eBay. And I'm still hoping to hear about success in repurposing my Kindle Fire HD8 whenever Joe gets around to looking at his.
One day.
Hint, hint. My Surface Pro 6th Gen took its dear sweet time leaving Texas. I ordered it on the 12th. It spent from the 18th through the 23rd somewhere in Texas. It finally made it to Knoxville on Thursday. It got here on Friday. Seems to work okay, although the boxing was substandard. It was barely wrapped at all. Coming out of the wrapping inside the box, and the box was dented and rained on and everything. Now I have to figure out how to get Linux on this puppy. No way am I going to keep using Windows. I had to log into Windows using email account and clicking all the boxes saying, no, I don't want you to take this data. No, I don't want you to take that data. No, I'm not interested in you stealing that from me. And
there's really, about 10 of them, isn't there?
There were more than that. And they wanted me to upgrade it to Windows 11.
Yeah.
And I do not know what that... I just said, no, I don't want Windows 11, and then told everything I could find on Windows 10 to go sit on it. It works very smoothly. I'm surprised at how easily everything works, and it probably won't when I get Linux on it. But it's like definitely high quality. The tablet itself, even though it's larger than the PineTab 2, it weighs about the same, maybe a little bit less, but it still feels like a completely quality tablet. The cover weighs next to nothing, whereas on the PineTab 2, the cover weighed almost as much as the tablet.
Just remember to get the this Linux-specific Surface kernel, because
Yeah, I'm going to have to figure that out somehow. Dale sent me a set of instructions on doing that.
Yeah, it's not that difficult. You can just put a normal distro on and then kind of change the kernel, basically.
Okay. Anyhow, I received and lost a new spinner ring. I showed you guys on the round table, I think, and it was very lovely, but it was not the right size for the finger I wanted. I put it on a smaller finger, and it was too big for that, and it fell off and eventually got lost. I lost it twice before the third time, and the third time it stayed gone. I'd like to order a replacement, but I probably can't clear that with my wife right now, finances and all that stuff. Here's something new. We registered for Southeast Linux Fest. The hotel had no rooms left. We're waiting to hear from the Concom about them adding more. So for the first time, I'm actually going to make it there. As usual, it will be at a hotel near the Charlotte, North Carolina airport. I hope we can find food trucks we can stomach. The convention is not allowed to bring in catering or even host a con suite, but they are allowed to have food trucks out on the outer circle of the parking lot. So I guess I finally get to meet Jackie if he's well enough to go this year. I hope he is. And hopefully we're going to get a hotel room, because it's no good going to a con if you can't be in the hotel. And the hotel, I think it's $117 a night with the con rate, and it's $141 without it. So there's that. I remember when I started back in 2019, we were screaming about trying to raise money to get me to go to Celt, and it didn't happen. And I donated most of that money to Linux Mint. And we've tried a few other times to try and get going, and it never got off the ground. But I actually got registered. There's actually several levels of registration on that, and it allowed me to register my wife without paying. They have a weird group of possibilities, one of which is you can attend and not pay anything, but you don't get the free t-shirt.
I need to get the free t-shirt, man. I mean, that's
mandatory. They did not have it in my wife's size. So
if you have to pay to get the free t-shirt, then is it really free?
I assume there are other things of the membership, but
this sounds very much like a Buddhist wisdom, doesn't it? Kind of like, if a tree falls in a forest and there's no one there to hear it.
It's sort of like Freudian to me. If you don't pay for your therapy, you're not getting therapy. But I figure my wife will be a lot less involved in the con than I will, and so it's good that they have at least a lower cost way for her to get in. I think that's it for me, unless you want to babble some more. Otherwise, it's off to Majid.
Well, I will still be babbling.
Are you presenting itself?
No, I could have gotten in to do some presenting. I don't know what good that would have done me. I think I'd rather get to know the convention before I present at it. Maybe next year if we like it enough to want to go back.
Okay.
I do need a mintCast t-shirt to wear to the con, though.
Well, we'll have to talk to somebody about making mintCast t-shirts.
Well, isn't that interesting that my son does t-shirt business where,
Isn't that interesting that it would cost more than the t-shirt to ship it to me?
Yeah, probably. But, obviously I'd give you a free one. But, yeah. I'm just saying, if you want everybody in the UK and wants a mintCast t-shirt, you know where to go.
If you want to print one up and mail it to me, you could even probably talk to my wife about subsidizing the postage. But I'll take it. I won't stop you from sending it to me, but I just, Anyhow, Majid.
Okay. So I was off for this last week. It's the kids' holidays. I always kind of try and put a couple of days in. There had been an original plan to go abroad, but I can't afford to do that at the minute. So we did a little bit of a slightly spur of the moment thing and went to Cambridge. So Cambridge, home of famous Cambridge University, also has lots of other interesting things. And I've been to visit it before. Me and my wife went and we did the touristy things of the universities and the cathedrals and all that sort of stuff. But there's a couple of other things that you can see there. One of which is the Eco Mosque. So this is a mosque that has been made by the local community, and it's the first sustainable net zero mosque in the UK. I mean, probably in the world, to be fair. And I knew a couple of people who were, I won't say involved, but people who used to attend. And so we thought, well, why don't we go just for a change, go away for a night, check this thing out, check out a couple of other things. Cambridge has got loads of museums, which are all free to attend. And so we did an Airbnb, managed to get a nice flat, which that was okay for me, the wife, and two of the kids. The third one couldn't come because he had university exams. And it was just a nice little trip, and had some very nice Turkish food while we were there. Caught up with some old friends. Apparently, Dubai chocolate is a thing. So this is. So I don't know if you guys have ever come across kunafa, which is kind of like this sweet cheese dish that's in sugar syrup with pistachios, but now you're getting it covered in chocolate apparently, and it's a big thing. I mean, I didn't buy any of it for myself, but the kids quite liked it, so we got some of that. So it was just a nice, day or two out of the usual humdrum of life. So I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier Ubuntu 25.04. So now there is an ARM build. So I decided that since I've got a Snapdragon X Elite laptop, let's see how this works. The biggest issue I had initially was actually just getting it installed. And I wasn't sure whether it was issues with my USB or issues with the ISO, or something like that, or the program that I've used to burn the image. I used Balena, I used Rufus, I used Raspberry Pi Imager. In the end, the reason was quite a simple one why it wasn't installing, and it was to do with secure boot, which is interesting because Ubuntu generally works well with secure boot and will still install even with secure boot enabled. But that wasn't the case with this ARM image. I don't know why specifically, but yeah. So I've managed to install it. It feels very much like all that stuff I was saying earlier about how it's so fluid and smooth and this, that, and the other. Yes, it is on my x86 laptop. On this, no, it's not. It doesn't. Yeah, it's just a bit choppy. There's a lot of screen tearing. There is random things that don't work. So, for example, the battery indicator doesn't work. It keeps always saying permanently this on 0. None of which are deal breakers, but it's definitely not a smooth, performant experience that it is on x86, which is probably not surprising because this is probably the first proper ARM or Snapdragon X Elite compatible ARM ISO that's come out by anybody. I need to check whether Fedora have one, because I know Fedora 42 has come out, and I know they generally have ARM builds, but I don't know how specific. But the fact that at least I managed to get it to work, it is quite cool. It is quite cool to be able to do that. That's what I've already mentioned. I was going to mention about Vision OS, the Commodore thing, but I've already talked about that, so I'm not going to talk about it again. Okay, so last time I was mentioning about cloud storage again, about end-to-end encrypted cloud storage again, and things that I was trying to, solutions that I was coming with. And Joe and Bill both said to me, well, why aren't you using Nextcloud? And last time I tried using Nextcloud, like as a personal cloud storage solution, I was using it on a Raspberry Pi, which meant that I started having some issues around networking, port forwarding, and stuff like that. Things which was completely went over my head. And this was about 18 months ago, actually, now more than a year ago. And so I just kind of left it and didn't bother. So I thought, well, let me look into it again. And now that I have a NAS, a Synology one, I thought, well, maybe I'll put Nextcloud on the Synology NAS. I mean, there must be a compatible version and stuff like that. So I came across a couple of guides on Tinternet, and one guide was actually installing it properly with like a LAMP stack, Apache, PHP, and making it as like a proper server. And the other one was doing it through a Docker image and containerization using Portainer? Portainer, that's it. Sorry, Portainer. I couldn't get either to work. Part of it, I don't know whether it's because the guides weren't the best or the fact that I didn't actually understand some of the bits in the guides. And so I was very much going with what, just following stuff and not necessarily knowing what exactly I was doing. If you want to install it with Docker, apparently you need to have a specific wildcard certificate and all this kind of stuff. And so after a while, I just started thinking, look, I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to stop now. So if anybody's got any ideas of how I should try this again. I mean, I as I said, I installed the whole LAMP stack and such as
Resilio Sync.
Okay.
Or Sync Thing.
Not really. Sync Thing. Okay. Can I encrypt stuff that way?
Because of how it sends information using the BitTorrent protocol, it basically is encrypted. It's not something you really need to worry about.
Okay. So yes, maybe that's the next thing to try. Been doing some more work, obviously, on the Atypical Doctor podcast. I had a bit of a podcast marathon last week because I had OTC followed by Roundtable and then followed by episode 2 of season 2, which was Blue Texas with the Boylans. Joe and his, good lady, her indoors, joined me for an interesting conversation about the state of politics in the US. If anybody wants to listen, please go to the website. There is an RSS feed now. It's on Spotify. Apple, I still haven't managed to sort that out yet. I need to talk with Bill to get that done. But there's that. I've been doing a bit more work on the website. Again, learning as I'm kind of going ahead. The whole, how maintaining website goes. I'm starting to get a hang of Audacity. The first episode of season 2, I'd had to kind of be walked through how to edit it with Bill, but I was able to do the second one pretty much myself. A couple of people have noticed the little mintCast Easter egg that I put in, which is that I've taken the old mintCast theme tune because I always loved that theme tune, and it's Creative Commons. So there you go. If everybody wants to hear the classic mintCast theme tune, you can always listen to it. So I was thinking about the next interview and who I would be getting on, which then started which then started the conversation as to, well, how's I going to do it? Because look, these last two have been done obviously with people who I podcast with on OTC and mintCast as well. And so we've got all the, the mintCast, the Discord server and the Craig bot and all that sort of stuff already set up. Now, the next interview that I'm going to do probably isn't going to be somebody from within that circle, somebody else. And so I thought to myself, well, I need to, I suppose actually, I need my own Discord server, really, and it'd be good for the socials. But also, I do like the Craig bot, which allows the downloading of, it does the kind of audio recording for you, and makes the Audacity project for you. It makes life a lot easier. So yes, I now have a Discord server, the Atypical Doctor Discord server. Please join. More shameless self-promotion here.
Hey, you could always get President Zelensky to be on the show with you.
I have a feeling I might not be high on his list of people who would want to interview him, but hey, I suppose if you don't ask, you never know. Yeah. In other odds and sods, I finished Criminal Record on Apple TV. It was good fun. Peter Capaldi is a brilliant actor. I finished Daredevil Born Again, which is probably one of the few decent Disney Marvel shows. I still thought the climax, the finale was a little bit underwhelming, but hey ho. I finished Terminator Zero on Netflix, an anime extension of the Terminator franchise. It was all right. I mean, it's not going to win any awards, but it was all right. Currently watching Mobland, which is a Guy Ritchie gangstery series on Paramount. I don't know what it is on in the US, but here it's on Paramount. Stellar cast: Tom Hardy, Paddy Considine, Helen Mirren, and Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan is Irish. Yes, this is well known. But he makes the worst Irish accent I have ever heard in my life on this show. It has to be heard to be believed. It is really... He's obviously hamming it up. But
he's been reading too many Lucky Charms commercials. Yeah.
Oh, God, man. It's terrible. And it's like, but you're Irish. Okay, do you know what I mean? Surely you should be able to do a less comedy Irish accent. Just talk normally. Have a slight, have a slight Irish lit. Anyway, sorry.
Hey,
it's been good fun.
I've been trying to get Peter Capaldi fans to go back and watch Local Hero, which was one of
Yes, I remember. Movies. Yeah, you told me last
Did you watch it yet?
No, I haven't got around to it yet.
Well, you got to get that. That's one of the top movies of all time. At one time, it had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's one of the... I have a list of these kind of classic, inverted commas, classic films that I've never actually got around to watching. Do you know what I mean? And stuff that has passed me by, including on TV as well as on movies. So, for example, Twin Peaks. I've never actually watched the original Twin Peaks, so that's something on my kind of...
I haven't either. I just visited the Twin Peaks downtown here, though.
Okay,
different thing.
I think so, slightly. The other thing I've been watching is, I think Half the World, Andor, season 2 on Disney Marvel. And again, it's good. It's, again, definitely the best Star Wars thing from Disney Marvel. It beats The Mandalorian as well. Mainly because The Mandalorian season 3 was so pants.
Well, the main problem with Andor is it makes no sense at all unless you watch Rogue One.
Because
it doesn't
not
tie in. And, okay. I was wondering where the heck all this Andor stuff came from. And then I watched Rogue One and I said, oh, that. Okay.
I mean, yes. It does help, obviously. But the thing that's interesting about Andor is less the specific storyline, but more the... this is going to be a little bit political on point, isn't it, at the minute? What's it like actually living under a fascist dictatorship? What compromises does a resistance have to do? What are the moral grey areas that you have to get through to get to a better tomorrow? There's that famous Stellan Skarsgård in it. He does this famous little soliloquy about, what you asked me what I've sacrificed for the rebellion. I've sacrificed everything, and the kind of characters that you get, again, in a fascist dictatorship, people who are trying to get on, people who are trying to use propaganda as a tool, people who are talking about false flags to try and, we need to get this mineral to make the Death Star. But what we're going to do is, what we need actually is a resistance group that will do the wrong thing at exactly the right time. And it's kind of like, all these... So, and I think that, at least for me, is the reason Andor works. Because it's like, it's not necessarily about the, A goes to B, goes to C, goes to D, and then this happens. Because in a sense, we already know what's happening. At the end of the, we know what happens. Even if you didn't watch Rogue One, you know that the Death Star gets destroyed. from the first Star Wars. So we already know where the story's going, but it's the way that it gets there. You know, and
Joe, we don't have that one, do we?
What one?
Andor season 2.
I don't have it.
I didn't think so.
But
I'll talk to Bill.
I mean, you can always watch. Just watching season 1 will be.
We watched season 1. We had Disney then, and we don't have Disney now. It just they kept raising the price and lumping things into it and raising the price some more, and no.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I got annoyed with Disney, and then I managed to get some kind of promotional thing again for like half price or something. So then I was like, then I've got it again. There's a couple of TV things that I've been thinking about watching, but I don't. They're basically computer game based, and I never played the games. So Devil May Cry on Netflix, which is an anime one, and The Last of Us season 2, which has just come out. I haven't actually seen season 1. Now, so this is a kind of a question. Is it necessary to know about the games to enjoy these series? Because I had never played The Witcher when the first Witcher came out. I mean, I played it since, but yet I really enjoyed The Witcher.
We did too, and I don't play video games. So.
Yeah. So you know, I'll be interested to know. You know, for someone, I've never played Last of Us, as an example. I never played Devil May Cry. You know, am I missing out? Would I still enjoy? You know.
Well, you can skip the Minecraft movie. It's rotten garbage from start to finish, from what I've heard.
I mean, to be fair, the idea of a Minecraft movie does make me want to kind of put, you know, needles in my eyes. But I mean, okay.
Well, yeah, but when you got Jack Black and Jason Momoa.
I'm gonna point out the Borderlands movie.
Again, I've not played Borderlands. I've not watched it.
Jack Black. Bunch of actors.
Oh yeah, so yeah. I mean, you know, these are the things which are like movies made by committee, isn't it?
But you know, it's been a long time since I played Twisted Metal. But I really enjoyed the Twisted Metal TV, and I'm really hoping season 2 comes out one day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that one yet.
No, I've not seen that one.
Watch it.
Twisted Metal? No, don't know that one.
What's it on?
I don't remember. My Plex?
Okay. That's a good enough answer for me. It's a good enough answer. Okay, and my yearly every year around April and May, I just end up watching loads and loads of cricket because the Indian Premier League is there, and the Indian Premier League is the exact opposite of what everybody thinks cricket is. It is not 5 days long; it's 2.5 hours long. It's got cheerleaders, it's got music, it's got Bollywood, it's got close games, it's good fun. And so I would always tell anybody who has who wants to see something slightly different to watch it, because it is good. And my team is doing well. Bangalore is doing well this year.
I heard Liverpool FC won a championship finally.
Oh God, let's not talk about that though. Yes, let's not talk about that. I was trying to get through a podcast without somebody mentioning that.
Too late.
Liverpool?
Yeah, I'm a Manchester United fan, so we hate Liverpool. They hate us.
I think they tied Man U for championships with that one.
No, they've gone past us. They've gone.
Well,
past
Manchester's
us.
what, 14th?
Yes, Manchester United is 14th. We've had a terrible season. This is the worst season since 1974.
And aren't they one of the most highly paid teams? So money doesn't count for everything?
Oh, no. Oh, it definitely doesn't. Look, you know, if you want this podcast to go on for an hour and a half, I can get into the issues around Manchester United since Sir Alex Ferguson left in 2013. But
that sounds like
we'll save that for Linux Innards. Yeah.
Let's save it for the innards.
I was going to say, it's not really Linuxy though, but yeah. Anywho, I think I'm going to stop there before I start giving myself a coronary when I'm thinking about Man United's football season.
Okay, well, that's it then for our bi-weekly wanderings. And now we're into the Linux Innards, where we will be discussing how badly
Liverpool
Manchester
FC,
United sucks.
Oh, God. Yes, no, I think I actually had a vague Linuxy idea for this, which was what was our first ever distro. The reason being because, you know, my first ever distro ended up in the news.
Linux?
You know what? If we use Linux, we'd probably be better, right? But we obviously don't.
That's the problem. You're using Surface tablets on the sidelines.
That's what it is, isn't it? I'm blaming Microsoft for Man U's terrible season. Pinnock. But yeah, so I mentioned Commodore Vision OS, which is in the news, which was my first ever distro. Masters talked about Mandriva already. So it's so Joe, you were saying something before we started about your first distro was something interesting as well.
Was it? I don't remember.
Okay, well, I thought it was interesting. Oh God!
No,
See,
my
don't
first
understand football. You just keep calling them Manchester because there is Manchester City, which unfortunately
is also overpaid.
Yeah, but at least they're winning stuff. Do you know what I mean? We haven't won anything.
Man City is the LA Dodgers of the Premier League.
Man City is owned by an Arab sheikh from Dubai who just throws money at the place. It's like, you want another 10 million? I give you another 10 million. No problem. You want to buy this striker? No problem. Do you know what I mean?
Here we go back into our accents.
God, yeah. At least my Arab accent's not that bad, to be fair. Better than the Nigerian one I did earlier.
Your Italian accent?
Okay, yeah. So it was Red Hat you were saying, wasn't it?
Yes, actually, it was Red Hat, and my first exposure to actually using Linux as opposed to using something on an Atari that was similar to Linux would have been while I was living in the barracks. My roommate had a computer, and on that computer he had Red Hat Linux. Now, granted, this would have been in like 2000, 2001 time frame, so really long time ago. And then I kind of, switched back to using Windows very time. And then I think after that, when I started going to college for programming, I decided that if I was going to be in tech, and if I wanted to learn Linux, then I needed to, fully dive into that entire environment. So I probably started like everybody else with Ubuntu, moved over into Mint, and I also did try out Fedora several times on several different machines. And I looked for alternatives to even Linux. So I did, for a small while, try out BSD and actually Solaris, desktop version of Solaris, just to try it out and see how things were. But I ended up really liking Mint, and I've basically stuck with that ever since, other than a couple of times trying out things like Garuda or Fedora again on various machines. Because, well, if you want to use GNOME, then really you go to Fedora. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but it's not that long of a conversation. Not like, Manchester.
I was just thinking in terms of my early stuff that I actually did have distros before Linux. My first OS was actually VMS. I was married to a digital engineer, and she actually managed a VAX cluster for digital at the Colorado Springs building. And I'd log into her VAX cluster and play NetHack. Well, it was just hack back then, but and then she actually got me their digital's first attempt at a personal computer, which was really funky. It was the thing used two 8-inch floppy disks, and they held 8-inch, and they had 160 kilobytes per. And I was using DeckWriter, which is their word processing software at the time, WIPS, WPS. And WIPS would not save. I could write the stuff, I could print the stuff, and then when I saved it, it just wouldn't go to disk. So much for that one.
What year was this? Out of interest?
Oh, golly. 80, 70, 80, some, I think around, let's see, would have been like 79, I guess. I did have a local sysop that loaned me a IBM PC that he had sitting around doing nothing. So I did get on BBSs at that time, but that's not really operating system. It was Windows. It was DOS 3.1, I think, on it.
What was your first computer then? That was yours?
The first computer that was mine was a TI-99/4A.
Yeah, I'm not sure I know what that is actually.
TI-99. It was the first 16-bit computer, but the marketing department did not know what 16-bit meant, so they were trying to market it against the Commodore 64.
Oh, okay.
Which was only an 8-bit machine. They had Bill Cosby doing the commercials. That really does not hold up historically.
Wow, 1980 it came out.
Yeah, that was
16-bit in 1980. That's something, isn't it?
And the marketing had no idea that what they had. They kept trying to cut it down and make it cheaper. And the fun thing was that TI made all their own chips, but they were much more expensive chips than what Commodore was using in their 8-bit C64. And there are a lot more chips in the machine than what were in the C64. And they could not market it competitively by price and make anything.
You know, it costs about $200 to buy one of these now. Man, yeah. if you still had it, you'd make some money on that.
Well, it really became useful when you bought the expansion box, but at the time, I paid like $187 for the computer with 2 joysticks and a couple of games and BASIC and all the fun stuff. I already knew how to program a little bit in BASIC from a college course I took. But without the expansion box, it was pretty useless. And the expansion box cost $400 just for the box. No drives, no nothing, no software, just the box. It did give you additional memory, but not a whole lot. And I never did get the expansion box. With the expansion box, I'd probably still be running a TI. But wow. the chess program was not available on cassette. You had to have a disk drive floppy for that. And so I never went on in that. So I got lucky and my local sysop loaned me his IBM PC. 2 years later, I finally wound up buying it off of him. And by that time, I was ready to go to a 286, and I wound up having to build my own 286 because the original PCs were 5 slots, and the 286s were 7 slots, and you just could not fit 7 slots. You could fit the motherboard in the box. You just didn't have any place to hit the slots with external access. So I wound up building my own 286 from there. I did, I think I had a 386 when I tried Mandrake. And then Mandrake upgraded. I don't know if it was version 9 or 10, but it would no longer run on my hardware. I fiddled around back to Windows a bit, and I fiddled around with SUSE. There was no open SUSE back then. And SUSE would run. I could get it to run. I just couldn't get it to actually feel like I was using it. And so I went back to Windows for a little bit and then went to Ubuntu 8.04, which was a damn good system, let me tell you. And that's when I started getting into a Full Circle magazine and all that fun stuff.
What was your favorite first computer then, Joe?
The first, 486 DX266.
Oh, I had one of them.
Yeah.
I had one of them.
I had one of those too after my 386. In fact, I was still running the 486 DX266 with Windows 3.11.
We bought one of them in
After everybody else was on Windows 95, I was still running either Windows 2000 Pro or Windows 3.11.
I remember we got it in 1995, early 1996, and I felt really upset having to buy it because I'd been such an Amiga user beforehand, but I needed to do work, like, you know, school work and stuff. And so we ended up getting it, and it lasted a long time, actually, relatively speaking. We only got rid of that in like 2000.
I still haven't managed to get rid of my Z800 workstation, which is sitting here as a 2010. Dual processor, 4 cores, 4 threads. You know, single thread, but quad core.
Windows 95 really was. I quite liked it.
I never used it. I never used 95 or 98. I went from 2000. I went from 3.11 to 2000 Pro to XP, and I was really late getting onto XP.
Pretty sure I was Windows 98 certified at one point.
Ooh, okay.
I got to XP really late in the game, and then I moved to 7. And 7 is really the best Windows so far.
I mean, I've got a still a soft corner for 8, but that's just, I'm a weirdo.
Yeah, 7 was basically just like, I don't know, it was 8 up, or XP upgraded. But 8, before it became 8.1, had a lot of really useful features that were, yes, security issues, and that's why they got rid of them when 8.1 came out.
Oh, well, both 8 and 8.1 I used on laptops I bought that came with 8.
I remember getting 8. I bought a specific all-in-one PC, touchscreen, and I remember having it in our...
With a touchscreen, it would have been a good OS, but without a touchscreen, it was useless.
Yeah, and then, you know, we had it in our kind of kitchen diner area. So the idea being that if the kids want to go on the computer, they go on there, but we can all see what they're doing. And then my wife can, I don't know, if she wants to watch TV while she's doing the cooking, or if I want to watch TV while doing the cooking or whatever. The theory of it was really good. The reality of it wasn't as... In the end, I mean, I love the work that I did on that.
Was that they were trying to, like, merge how the Windows mobile operating system worked with how the desktop/laptop operating system looked and worked.
And since nobody ever bought Windows phones, it did not continue.
Well, some people did buy Windows phones.
I bought a Windows phone. I had a Samsung Omnia 7, I remember.
I had the
and within...
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I remember the reason I bought it as a present to myself for having passed an exam. Because I didn't need another phone. I had what did I have at the time? I had a HTC. Which HTC did I have? HTC Hero? No. Probably the HTC Sensation. No, I had a Google. I had the Google Nexus, the second one, the Nexus S, not the Nexus 1, the Nexus S. And then I bought this. And the only reason for buying it was because I was going to turn it into a Wi-Fi hotspot, and then, you know, have everything connect to it, because I was living in hospital accommodation at the time, and you couldn't put your own Wi-Fi in. And so, you know, we'd all, you know, you have to do all sorts of, you know, interesting things to get basically internet there. Anyway, and so I bought that. So I remember buying it, and within 12 hours, I rooted it. I had become a Microsoft developer, and I'd managed to unlock the hotspot functionality, and which apparently wasn't there originally. And then I was able to connect all my devices to that. It was still only a 3G network, but I mean, we're talking about 2012.
That's better than nothing.
I quite, I liked Windows Mobile. I think they should have.
I enjoyed the Dell Axum X51V for a very, very long time. And I was able to, that's a Windows device. And I was able to, you know, get that all the way up to, I think, either 6.5 or 7.5 before I finally put that thing away. It was a PDA as opposed to a phone. So it was still very, very useful for the time. And I really enjoyed both reading books on that and using it as a Wi-Fi phone. After that, I also had the HTC HD2, which, yes, it originally came with Windows, and I did use it for a small amount of time with Windows on it. But it was one of the ones where HTC hadn't really done a whole lot to lock down the bootloader. So it very quickly was running Android.
This phone apparently can run almost anything. Apparently, I mean, people were installing Windows XP on it.
Yeah.
People were installing Linux on it, all sorts of stuff.
Yes, Linux, Sailfish, you name it. Everything was ported onto the HTC HD2. But I think people finally stopped using it because it only had like, what was it, 512?
Yeah. Yeah, but
it wasn't much RAM. It did not have very much RAM at all. So, no, because it wasn't fun. Gosh,
well,
how
I
much RAM
skipped
did
that
it
whole
have on it?
period. I was still using dual sliders back then.
448
My
megs
fat
of RAM
fingers
it
do
had.
not like
Yeah.
touch screens. It took me a long time to move to a touch screen. But I was using dual sliders with real keyboards. The last one I had was the Pantech Matrix on AT&T.
Yeah, and then one of my favorite like Windows phones was that the Dash and the HTC Dash and the HTC Dash 2. Those were both Windows phones technically, although they did not have a touchscreen. They had the BlackBerry style buttons down lower, and they did have internet. It just really, really wasn't good.
So the HTC HD2, the XDA forum for it is still active.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right? Yeah, and the one of the not the latest post, but one of the recent posts is about Debian working on it. It's like it is a legendary device, isn't it? Do you reckon was it due to the bootloader, or was it also something to do with the architecture that made it so easy to run other things?
It was most definitely the bootloader because HTC couldn't continue their work with either Android or Windows after the HTC HD2 until after they were willing to lock down the bootloader to the point where it was supposedly secure. Now, granted, people, whatever bootloader gets put on a phone, eventually they get past it. But that one was just wide freaking open. I don't even think you had to exploit it. And that was really why people flocked to.
I'm so tempted to buy one now.
It's a classic.
Well, now that we found a way to put stock Android on a Fire tablet, maybe you could just try that one. It'd be a little more in the present.
That's not the point, though.
If you want to talk about like odd things with tablets, I think there was a surfboard tablet. I think that was also that was Huawei, wasn't it? Surfboard tablet that you could custom ROM. Let me see. Long. It was working. HP doing this. Board Android.
3-inch screen size. Oh my days.
Which one? The HD2?
The HD2. Yeah. And I remember that because people were like, "Oh, it's got such a massive screen." 3 inches.
Yeah, the sizes of screen has really, really changed since back then. What was considered, a phablet back then would be barely considered a small phone nowadays.
Well, but they changed.
Yeah, I mean the Note. I mean the original Galaxy Note was what, 5 inches?
From phablet to the larger phones, they made them taller and thinner, whereas the phablets were a little bit wider and easier to handle.
Yeah, true. But even then, I remember the first Galaxy Note was 5 inches, 5.3, and people were like, "Oh my god, this is massive! Who would ever use such a thing?"
Right.
And then around that same time,
people used to make fun of you when you had those things because it looked like you were holding a 7-inch tablet to your head.
Yeah, and then I remember I was in, India's always had the widest variety of stuff. And I remember being in India around that time, and in India you could get what they call the Galaxy Mega, which was a 6.3-inch phone. And I remember thinking of it, and I was thinking, flipping heck, this is massive. Do you know what I mean? And now here we are, and I noticed something. So when I got my S25 Ultra, I noticed that the screen size on that is 6.9 inches. So basically 7 inches. So it's like a Nexus 7. Except it's not, because it's still smaller. But And I just thought to myself, flipping out, 12, 13 years ago, we were buying this as a tablet, and now it's there as a phone. You know, it's
Yep. Well, we don't know what Man U is using, but
whatever they're using is crap. Okay, whatever they're using is crap.
Back in the day, I specifically bought this one tablet because you could put a SIM card into it and use it like a phone. So I was
I remember there used to be these Asus pad phones. You know,
those are different though. You would take your phone and you would slide it into a slot on the back of the thing, and then the tablet.
But they had two things. One was like that, but another one was just basically a tablet, but you could put a normal SIM card in and you could make phone calls with it.
Pad phone. No, I remember the pad phone specifically because it was a tablet, but you slipped the phone into it. I can see the pictures of it here. Pad phone 2 even. You slid the tablet into it, or slid the phone into the tablet, and then you also had like a keyboard that you could slide the tablet into, something crazy like that, to turn it into a laptop type device.
I mean, I know this is going to be like massive news to everybody, but God, there's loads of stuff you can buy on eBay.
Yeah.
Galaxy, I can buy a Galaxy S3 for £12.
What company was it that had that? It had a specific phone that you could slide it into the docking station and basically.
Motorola Atrix.
Thank you, the Motorola Atrix, the Motorola lap dock.
Yes,
that's what it was. And people are still making lap dock style devices.
Yeah,
it's kind of awesome.
Yeah. The Galaxy S3. I loved that phone. I
used the hell out of that. The S3.
Never used a Samsung phone.
The S3
period.
Mini.
Yes.
Both of those were awesome.
Yeah, so you can get an S3 Mini for £11.
Yeah, but you can't really use it anymore.
So I'm sure I saw a thing of somebody managing to get a port of Lineage onto, I think it was an S4.
Well,
I'm sure I saw this video.
It's super useful with that low amount of RAM, the 15-year-old processor, and the small form factor. I'm sure it just is brilliantly fast.
Check your sarcasm font,
4.8 inches, man. I mean, wow. No, I loved my Galaxy S3. I really loved it.
Well, when they came out with the WebOS phones, I was waiting for them to come up with one that was big enough for my hand, because the first two were tiny little things, and they were going to have a phablet out as the next item, and then they decided, nope, we're not doing WebOS anymore.
Wasn't mobile was so interesting in those days, man, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All the different operating systems, people trying different things, different form factors, different designs.
All the different ways the phone companies handicapped them.
Basically, every single phone had an article on it on XDA developers. Everybody was hacking phones.
Yeah.
Everything
and now
custom ROM.
It's just, now it's like, which flavor of shit is it that you would prefer?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's very boring.
Well,
I'm sorry.
It's Android, or Android these days.
Well, yeah. It's also Apple.
No, nobody uses Apple.
Oh, plenty of people use Apple.
Yeah, I think that was sarcasm, Joe.
There's a lot of communities that you go to that if you have an Android phone, that they'll stop and they'll ask you, when are you going to get a grown-up phone?
Yeah, people who say that
when I was driving Uber, I'd get all these drunks in my car that had iPhones, and they say, here, call someone for me. I couldn't even figure out how to dial the damn thing.
I mean, I can always go into a massive rant about how iOS is the least useful and user-friendly UX, but people have got Stockholm syndrome with Apple, and so they just stick with it. But, you've heard that before, so I'm not going to do it again.
I think we heard that from Man U.
Oh.
Ouch. Ouch.
Mars, you was my friend. You were my friend.
Liverpool
Let's talk about cricket.
FC.
Let's talk about cricket instead. You know, Bangalore are doing well. Bangalore are doing a Virat Kohli, brilliant, fantastic. Football, what football? There's a game called football. I have no idea. Is it that one where they throw things like in America? Is that what it is? Oh, no idea.
See, the people in Man City know how to play football, though.
Yes, they do. You know, there's probably only about 3 people who listen to this podcast who will find any of this funny. The rest will be like, why are they talking about all this Manchester stuff? Isn't that in Boston?
You know, my feelings are hurt. That accent actually hurt my soul. Okay?
I thought it wasn't too bad, actually, considering.
No, it was horrible. It was horrible.
Okay.
Well, we could babble on for another half hour if you like. Or we could start wrapping the thing up.
Yes, I think... you can get an Galaxy S2 as well for £12.
I don't know if I could go back that far.
Yeah,
come on.
I got the Surface Pro 6th Gen tablet. I paid $170. Well, it was almost $180 with shipping and tax. And
yeah, I was going to ask you how much that cost, because
we're talking about a machine that's $1,550 new, and I got it for
that's good.
$180.
Good price, man.
No, like the S3, I was using one until like 5 years ago or so, either as music players or as my son's like Wi-Fi phone. And then, you know, you really couldn't get them updated anymore. They really didn't go on the internet all that well, and they really kind of sucked. So had to move on.
I will state categorically that my Pixel 3a XL had much better sound quality than my Pixel 7.
Okay. So my Galaxy S3 story is that I remember buying it in 2012, and there was a problem with my previous phone, but I couldn't get it fixed because it was still under contract. And so what I decided to do was I went into a shop and I sold it and bought the Galaxy S3 from them. So I bought it, I brought it home, and I loved it. And I would use it all the time. And that was the first phone, I would say, that I actually started using properly. So podcasts, music player, you know, really as the way that we use a smartphone now as, you know, your all-in-one kind of device. You know, the ones I had before had not been either powerful enough, or there were some issues with the software. So I used to have before that I had a HTC Sensation, which had some software problem, which meant that it would always be randomly rebooting. And, you know, the HTC weren't interested in trying to fix it.
Yeah. Like the Samsung Behold 2, which was my first official Android device, which they said was going to get the update from, what was it, Android like 3 to 4 or something. And then
it would have been before that. It probably would have been gingerbread to froyo, so like 2.3 to 2.4, something like that.
Yeah, something crazy like that, super early on. And they just wouldn't do the update, and the thing ran like garbage. And I tried calling T-Mobile, because even then I had T-Mobile. And they were like, yeah, that's a Samsung problem, not an us problem. I could not convince them that I needed a different phone. So that was when I switched to.
Yeah. So I used to have this problem all the time with the HTC. And so I said, I got fed up and I went into Computer Exchange and I said, I'm going to buy that Galaxy S3. Everybody says Galaxies are brilliant. Galaxy S2 had great reviews. And I loved it. It was brilliant. As I said, it was the first phone that I started properly using as a camera. That I remember I was listening to mintCast on that phone. I first started listening to mintCast on that phone because I'd figured I'd got a podcast player and I'd got an RSS feed, and I used to listen to Android Central and all this kind of stuff. And I hadn't got Spotify yet. Got Spotify the year later, but I'd got my own locally downloaded music and all that sort of stuff.
Dude, the S3
and then
and the Note
S3.
3.
So that S3, after about 5 months, I went to, I remember going to my son's school to pick him up. I think he had some kind of Saturday class, and I wasn't getting any reception, and I didn't understand what was happening. And I thought, well, okay, there isn't any reception maybe in this area, you know. spotty, but I've had it when I've come here before. I don't know. Anyway, I could not for the life of me make a phone call afterwards. It would connect to Wi-Fi. I could do everything on Wi-Fi, but it would not connect to cellular at all. Anyway, I rang up my network, and it turned out they said, "Oh, your phone is blacklisted." Excuse me? What do you mean my phone is blacklisted? Turns out that the guy that sold this to the shop had basically bought this phone on some kind of contract, had then sold the phone and then left the country and then refused to pay his contract. And so even though I was with a different network, the IMEI number was still with the original network. And so after 6 months, they'd got fed up and they'd said, okay, we're blacklisting the phone now. And so I was like, okay, so yeah, your phone's just a piece of garbage now. So, well, it's not my fault, this. Now, so I went back to Computer Exchange, and credit to Computer Exchange, they said, okay, yeah, this is our fault. Well, not our fault, but, you've got a reason, we obviously hadn't checked this properly when we sold it to you or whatever. We'll buy it back from you, but we'll only buy it back from you at today's rates, not the price that you paid for it. Which I think if I'd pushed it a bit, they probably would have given me. But remember, again, in those days, things were changing so quickly that, if you had a phone that was 6 months, a year old, it lost quite a lot of money.
And phones were subsidized a lot more when you were buying them through your carrier. So you were paying practically nothing for your freaking phones.
So in the end, so that was the end of the S3. And then I just went, I just got an S4 straight away because I'd loved the S3 so much. And even though it was upgraded and it had a better camera and it had a better screen and all that sort of stuff, there was some of that magic I felt had been lost slightly from the S3 to the S4. It definitely was when it got to the S5. My wife had an S5. That was a pants phone. I'm sorry. It even felt like pants.
I went from the S3 to the S7 to the Note 3.
I did a very long. There's a list on which I've made somewhere, which I've shared once on Facebook, of all the phones that I've ever had since I first had a mobile phone of any description, which was 1999 or year 2000. 62.
Well,
which is ridiculous.
I'm definitely the Luddite in this group because I had some Samsung equipment like VCRs and such that the instructions were impossible to read, and the devices only lasted a year and a half, and so I never touched Samsung equipment on phones.
So I've still got a VCR because we kept it for watching old kind of family videos that my dad had made in the 90s and stuff. And then I've kind of realized that I really need to get this stuff converted to digital because at the end of the day, because those tapes are going to rot at some point. Which then led to an interesting discovery in that we have managed to lose my marriage video, which actually I'm not that bothered by because it was cringeworthy as fuck. Pardon my language.
So you're not married anymore?
No, I am. A big
you
Indian
lose the
wedding.
video, doesn't that invalidate the marriage?
Well, if only, my friend, if only. Unfortunately, it's a little bit more difficult to get divorced, apparently. And more expensive than just losing your wedding video.
Hey, I've gotten divorced 5 times. What's your problem?
Don't remind me, yeah? You've had more wives than I've had girlfriends. I mean, you are 30 years older than me, but I mean,
Yeah, well, I had a rough life. It's only this last marriage that found someone that actually could put up with me long enough, and the first couple of years were not fun.
Yeah, well, I'm your age, so no, I'm not.
You got plenty of time.
No, I don't want to get divorced, though. It's so bloody expensive to get divorced. I wouldn't do that.
Well, see, when you're poor like I am, no one can take you for anything in a divorce. And in fact, most of my divorces were financed by the woman because she wanted to go get remarried.
You're in the way, pupper.
So this is the mistake I made, yeah? By earning money. I should not earn any money.
You should not have become a doctor first. You should have gotten divorced and then become a doctor.
All
Anyway,
right,
now we really are babbling.
Let's
And
I
move
think we're off
on.
topic here.
Linux
Yeah.
innards is over. Let's
Yeah,
move
it
on
Is.
to
Let's
what's
move on to
next?
Bodhi Corner,
Bodhi
Oh,
Corner,
please.
Is that me?
which is all Moss.
All Moss all the time.
Over to you, Moss.
All right. Bodhi Corner. This episode is Introduction to Moksha Modules. One of the things that makes Bodhi Linux so powerful is its flexibility. Whether you're running it on older hardware or building your dream desktop environment, Bodhi can be tailored to your needs. At the heart of this customization are Moksha modules, tiny plugins that can transform your desktop experience. In today's corner, we're diving into what modules are, how they work, and how you can explore and enable them to get the most out of your Bodhi system. A module is like a plugin that adds new functionality to the Moksha desktop. They're not required for the window manager to function, but they enhance and extend it, sometimes in small ways, sometimes dramatically. You can load or unload modules at any time by going to your main menu, going into Settings and Modules. More advanced users may know one can also manage modules using the enlightenment_remote command, which is $e_home_dir/config/$e_conf_profile. They're stored as compressed .eet files and are not human readable and not really intended to be edited manually, though technically possible if you do know what you're doing. I don't. Do modules use memory? Not until you load them. Modules are extremely efficient thanks to the Enlightenment Foundation libraries and use very little memory even when active. But if you're working with limited RAM, it's good to be mindful of what you have enabled. Behind the scenes, modules are shared libraries, usually .so files, stored in the $e_lib_dir/enlightenment/modules directory. On most systems, that path looks something like /user/lib/x8664-linux-gnu/enlightenment/modules. So that makes it nice and easy, doesn't it? Core modules in Moksha. There are around 50 modules in the Moksha source code. Not all are compiled or included by default in Bodhi Linux. We only ship what's needed for a lean usable desktop. One special module, E_wizard, is hidden and runs behind the scenes during initial setup. Here are a few essential modules you'll find active by default or ones you'll probably want. The mixer module controls your system sound. Taskbar module, view, open, and minimize windows. Key bindings module, customize keyboard shortcuts. Notification module, get on-screen notifications. Systray module, show tray icons for apps like Network Manager, Telegram, Cherry Tree, etc. Start module adds a start menu for launching applications, and many more. I have managed to live without the Smart module for a couple of years now. It's nice, but considering you can click anywhere on your desktop to get that menu, why bother with the module? Okay, some modules, such as the Forecast module, aren't installed by default, nor are they part of the Moksha source code. They're part of our minimalist design philosophy, but you can easily add them from the Bodhi Linux software repositories. To install extra modules, use either Synaptic Package Manager, which you get to Main Menu, Applications, System Tools, Synaptic, the App Center, or you can do it from the terminal using apt or Nala. All extra modules follow this naming convention, Moksha-module-mod name. We currently have over 30 extra modules in the repo. Some highlights include Moksha module Compton adds compositing for transparency, shadows, all the fun things. Moksha module Forecast displays the current weather. Moksha module Moon shows the current moon phase in high definition. Moksha module Sticky Notes puts sticky notes on your desktop. Moksha module Wallscape, animated or rotating desktop backgrounds. And oh, that's a fun one. I've tried playing with that, but you only need it if you're trying to change your wallpaper. The nice thing about modules is they don't use any memory unless they're loaded, so you don't need to uninstall extra modules unless you really want to reclaim disk space. To completely remove any extra module, just uninstall it like any other package in the Synaptic Package Manager or apt or Nala remove Moksha-module-mod name. You can't remove modules that are built into Moksha, and we don't recommend trying to delete them manually. Even if you do, a future update will just restore them. Moksha modules are one of the best parts of the Bodhi experience. You can keep your desktop lean and clean, or build it up with exactly the features you need. Whether you're a minimalist or a tinkerer, modules give you that power. Got a favorite module? Let us know in the Bodhi forums. There's a link in the show notes. As always, we would like to encourage you to visit our page at DistroWatch, get those page numbers up, join our forum and Discord channel. There's a link to the forum in the show notes, or just join the team like I did, and you won't be sorry, because it's a fun little distro to play with and use. So that's it for Bodhi Corner.
Okay, moving on. There is no vibrations from the ether. We got no love today. And then there's nothing in Check This Out. So we're moving on to housekeeping and announcements. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you have something that you think we should talk about, tell us. Send us an email, mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the mintcast subreddit. Chat with us on Discord and Telegram, or post directly at mintcast.org. Next episode, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, May 11th, 2025, and there's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. For the next Roundtable live stream, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, May 3rd, 2025, and there is a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Next Roundtable live stream, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, May the 17th, 2025, and there's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Live stream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. On to the wrap-up. If you like the sound of my voice, I'm Joe, and you can find me on the Linux Links Tech Show, which is at tlts.org. I'm also on the Linux Lugcast, which is lugcast.com. You can send me an email directly, jb@mintcast.org, or you can buy me a coffee with Ko-fi. Link in the show notes. Boss?
Well, you can hear me every week on Full Circle Weekly News. You can email me, moss@bodhilinux.com. My Mastodon is at zyvla@hosttux.social. I'm occasionally on HPR, and I'm applying for moss@liverpoolfc.com.
I'm not your friend anymore.
Should wait till I get my Joe at Manchester.
You got to get Man City, Joe.
Oh, okay. Joe at Man City. Now that sounds a little too, yeah. All right.
Joe at Man
Bill?
City. Yeah.
Joe at Man City. It sounds like your OnlyFans website or something.
Right. Okay. Link in the show notes. Anyways, Bill, who couldn't be here with us today, you can catch him at bill@mintcast.org, Bill_H on Discord, at WCHauser3 at on Mastodon. Also check out his other two podcasts, Linux OTC with Eric and Majid, and Three Fat Truckers. He also has a Man City account. So, Majid, how about you?
Well, you can email me on drmajid@mintcast.org. I'm on @atypical_doctor at mastodon.social. I'm Atypical Doctor on Instagram, Threads. I have the Atypical Doctor podcast, which is, there's a website, atypicaldoctor.com. It's also on Spotify. There's now a Discord server. We should have put the Discord server in to check this out, actually. And I'm also on Linux OTC as well with Bill and Eric and Leo.
And Eric also could not be with us today due to illness. Eric can be reached by email at eric@mintcast.org. Plus, he's on all the other podcasts that we mentioned.
And we need more co-hosts, so please join the team, mintcast@mintcast.org.
Yep, we will get you on the Discord, and then we will get you on the show.
Trust me, it's a low bar to be here. I mean, I'm here, for God's sake.
Fair. Before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintCast possible. Bill for our audio editing and for hosting the server which runs our website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server on which we host our show notes and raw audio. Archive.org for hosting our audio files. Hobstar for our logo. InitRD for the animated Discord logo. Londoner for our time sinks and various other contributions, and the Linux Mint development team for the fine distro we love to talk about.
Thanks, Clem.
Thanks, Clem and Co.
And that's a wrap, people. We promise next time we'll mention Manchester United and Man City even more.
And we're at 2 minutes, 6 seconds.
2 hours.
2 hours, 6 minutes, yes.
That's not bad, actually.
All right.
Okay.
Killed the stream.
All right then, lads. I'm going to get mooching.